Thank you so much for clicking on my video, and if you're returning, welcome back to my channel. On today's Royal Review, I am actually taking a recommendation. I received a comment from Sean Davis, and it read, "Hi Sharion, I'm a new subscriber and I love your channel." Thank you so much, Sean. I would like to recommend the docudrama TMZ No BS, Harry and Meghan. It's on Tubi. I watched it and it was, to my surprise, pretty good. It gives a perspective from the American side. I would love for you to review it if you haven't seen it yet. Thanks for sharing. Well, Sean, thank you so much. I really appreciate you not only taking the time to watch my little musty channel, but also leave a comment and a recommendation. Score, score, and score. Thank you so much. I'm gonna review it. Let's get into it. Once again, thank you so much for clicking on my video. If you have not already, feel free to go ahead and like this video, subscribe to my channel, and turn on that notification bell. I want to say a huge hello to the friend circle, and I'm going to curtsy to the royal court, and I want to say a very heartfelt thank you so much to the Patreon members. You have no idea. I appreciate you so much. Once again, thank you so much, Sean Davis, for recommending this docudrama. I watched it. I actually downloaded Tubi, and they have a lot of other really good content. So you just put me on twice. I really appreciate it. So I watched TMZ No BS, Harry and Meghan, and I have thoughts. It is definitely from the American side. I'm an American, and I can tell you, I was jumping out of my skin a couple of times at how many things I just wanted to sit them down and explain to them. They should have had at least one person from the UK phone it in, even just something, because there were a few things that I felt, had they had the perspective from the UK, their responses would have been different. Overall, it was a pretty good docudrama. I actually really liked it. I'm gonna watch the one about Britney Spears soon, because I do like the panel format that they have cultivated, and they're actually talking about each event in a very broad manner, but they're talking about each event. And as you know, TMZ is one of the biggest publications in the world. They know about people's deaths before they actually die. Like, they're always on the cusp of what's current. They know what's going on. Now, here's the thing. When I saw that this was TMZ, I was almost like, I don't want to watch it, because I have read TMZ for filth right here on this panel. I mean, right here on this channel. And I know how they can be, and a few times they have misrepresented, or they have remained so unbiased that they actually leaned into ridiculousness and allowed their publication to become a strong arm against the Sussexes in a lot of different articles. They have had really good articles about the Sussexes, but they've also played the game with the Markles, and not a fan of that. So I wasn't sure what I would expect, but since you watch my channel, Sean, and you recommended this, I was like, well, obviously Sean wouldn't recommend this if they didn't think I would like it. Appreciate the perspective they offered. So jumping right in, they, obviously timeline Harry's life, and they give a little bit of Meghan's background, but they mostly focus on Meghan's adult years, and then they focus on Prince Harry's adult, but mostly his child years, his childhood. And of course, they start with the death of Diana, as they always do, and I get why, but I hate reliving that, and I can only imagine how he'd be feeling. Like, I'm glad you acknowledged it, but could we not? And so they talk about how the death of Diana affected him because of how he was forced to publicly present himself and comfort others when he was also grieving, but he could not show grief. I felt personally that Prince Harry handled himself then and now with so much grace and poise, and honestly, same with William. At that time, as a child, he was a teenager and he lost his mom. They both were so poised, and neither of them should have been put in that position. But watching this play out, and then how they on the panel dissected how Prince Harry never really wanted to be a royal, he never really fit in. We just talked about that last week with the last documentary, and so they did acknowledge that, and they were right about it. one of the things they did point out is Prince Harry was definitely a scapegoat for William. And I've talked about it before, but not in this light. So it's rare that you see a panel talk about the royals, particularly Harry, and acknowledge how he's been treated, much less a publication in the media, because they're part of the problem. Now, TMZ is an American publication, but they are down and dirty. We all know what happened with Kobe. We all know what happened with Vanessa Bryant. We know TMZ has been in some murky waters before, but they actually were really considerate to Harry when they were talking about how he was the scapegoat for William. So much so that they would be at the same parties doing the same thing, leaving the same parties, both of them looking drunk, neither of them looking more worse than the other. Meanwhile, Harry is getting lambasted in the media and no one is saying a thing about William because he's the future king. And again, I don't agree with it. I understand the brainchild behind why one might do that. I don't understand executing it because there's so many other factors outside of him going to be president, outside of him going to be king. So they did talk about how Harry, when he became a young adult, he was just raked against the coals for just doing normal adult things, going to Vegas, having a good time. They showed some clips of Harry in the pool challenging Ryan Lochte to a race swimming. And for a minute there, they were toe and toe. They were neck and neck, and they were hanging with each other. And Ryan Lochte was like, "Well, yeah, I won." No shit, Ryan. No, I'm just kidding. That's that man's profession. But first of all, Prince Harry got some big cojones to be challenging people to a swim race when they are literally Olympic competitors. And so they also talked about on this docuseries that Harry's happiest time was in the military, which we have talked about here, and that he got to form real bonds outside of being a royal. In addition to that, they made it a point to focus on the fact that Harry has always wanted to be his own man and speak for himself, present himself in a certain way, and really get to live life. Now, I have spoken about how because he's not going to be king, or very, very, very unlikely to be king, he is still in the line of succession. He is so unlikely to be king that he does have a lot more freedom, but not much when he was still in the royal family as a senior royal. But he was disillusioned by the royal family, especially after his mother passed. I feel like there was a level of cruelty that they showed him, and I don't think that was the intent, but it was damn sure the outcome. So they did talk about him being a modern man in an archaic institution. All of this we have covered here, but they definitely covered ground, and they did a great job of it. But then they get over to Meghan, and they call her the royal feminist. And they show how much humanitarian work she did, how much philanthropy work she did, and they definitely identify as her voice as her prominent feature. She definitely used her voice to get her point across and make her way through the world. And being part of the royal family, that was something that she would have to lose. Now, a lot of people were like, well, it's still the royal family. But I felt like the panel, they needed someone from the UK or a royalist, not a royalist, but they needed like a royal commentator, maybe like Omid Scobie or someone to really give insight into exactly what Meghan was getting put through. I felt like as a whole, I felt like there was this dismissiveness about, oh, well, you lose your voice and that's sad, but you get to be a royal. You didn't want to acclimate, so you had to go. They really summed it up. At one point, they called Meghan clarifying on the Oprah interview that she did not make Kate cry. They said it was trivial. And the ladies, Lauren in particular, on the panel were trying to explain, like, no, that's not trivial over there, because they're not celebrities, they're royals. Over here, two celebrities arguing about who made who cry is trivial. Over there, that's their royal family. And if you come in as an outsider, as a biracial person, especially a biracial black person, and you come in as a divorcee, and you come in and you make their porcelain princess cry, then they're going to rake you against the coals. Like, they were literally trumping up these allegations against her to hit every nerve in the UK. And they succeeded at that. And that's why it was so important to dispel those rumors. But is it Harry Levin? He was not feeling it. He was just like, oh, it's not that big a deal. They also talked about how in 2012, Meghan spoke out in a PSA against racism. And I'm glad they included that, because so many people like to claim that Meghan didn't start talking about race until she was the only black person in the royal family, blah, blah, blah. That is not true. Her black mama was on red carpets. She spoke out multiple times about being biracial, about being black specifically. She also had it in Suits, where she had one black parent, and she made it a point to make that a conversation on the show. So she's never hidden from her roots. She's always been very proud of where she came from, even mentioning that in her engagement video with Harry in their engagement interview. So that was never the case. And this is why I think they needed a royal correspondent on the panel, or at least to just, again, phone it in. They also spoke about, they had guest Liz Correz. She was one of Meghan's sorority sisters. And something that she said about Meghan was worldly, deeply warm and caring, thoughtful, and mature. And she gave a human touch to the image of Meghan. They also spoke, they talked about Meghan being on Larry King Live even way before she was a royal, and how even then she spoke about gender equality, and being a core UN advocate and advocating for gender equality right there with Larry King. And she answered his questions with grace, with class, but she was very dignified and very direct. She got her point across, and she definitely made a moment for herself and for the cause. So she was about this life long before, and I was very glad to see that they did her justice when really talking about who she was as a person. So they get to the breakdown in her relationship with not only the royal family and the firm, but also the media in the UK. And something that they bring up is the fact that she claimed not to have Googled or looked up the royal family before meeting Harry. Again, I feel like perspective was needed from someone in the UK, because when she made that statement, I never for once thought that she meant she didn't know who he was. Ever. I don't think anyone got that impression. I think what she was saying was, I didn't go digging to learn things about him as a person. I wanted him to make an impression on his own. Meghan worked for the UN. She obviously knew who the royal family was. I think people were literally just pick what she says apart, and they decide they're going to make a statement about what it means versus actually just hearing what she's saying and taking it at face value. If you're meeting someone, you don't want to go find out all their dirt. So she knew enough about the royal family, obviously working for the UN. She's well aware of what's going on globally in politics, but she didn't look him up before she met him. And on the show, in this docuseries, they kind of made it a point to say that was the reason people started doubting her, because she claims that she didn't look up Harry. That was a lie. I think this is what TMZ was trying to accomplish. They were trying to stay middle of the road, which I get, because I kind of do the same. I try not to make accusations that I don't know to be true. I try to always cite where I got things from and not just make things up. But you got to be honest too. So the thing about middle of the road is you're honest for both sides, and then you give your opinion on both sides in an unbiased manner. So I want to be really responsible. Now, I may make jokes and kiki, and I may also talk about things that we do know that they did, or claims that are actually out there. I'm not going to create a claim. So being middle of the road does entail having integrity and being very fair and balanced. Fair and balanced doesn't mean equal stories for each person or equal tone about each person. Fair and balanced means I'm going to report on what I see and what I learn. I'm not going to make shit up, and I'm going to be honest with my feelings about it. That's fair and balanced. I'm not going to maliciously go after anyone, but I will report on what I see and give my opinion on it. I think that's what they were trying to do, but at times they said things that I found were just stupid. For example, Fabian and Charles got into it on the panel because Fabian basically said that when Meghan divulged to Oprah that someone had made a comment about Archie's skin tone and their concern, and then Prince Harry backed her up and did not name the person, that it was duplicitous because they didn't name who said it. First of all, would it have been better for them to name who said it, especially if that person is going to sit on the throne? Do you think that would have been helpful to Harry's family? Screw all the other stuff. this is still Harry's family. Like, I think people forget that he's not just railing against some government entity. He's talking about the people who raised him and the only family he has. So there is going to be a lot of honesty, but there's also going to be discretion, because if my family is in line for if my family member is in line for the throne, and whether or not they meant it maliciously, they made a huge gaffe that offended me and insulted my child, I may want them to pay, but I may not want them to pay by losing the trust of their people. And so while I put it out there to let them know I got it in the chamber, I don't have to tell you, Oprah, or anyone else who the fuck said it, because that's my family. I understood why he did not go a step further, and I appreciated the fact that he put a boundary there. Yes, I will tell you what happened. I will not give you any further details because that is still my family. So it's possible for two things to be true. I can share with you what happened and what we went through without going against my family in such a way that it would harm them indefinitely. And I felt like Fabian was really short-sighted. He continued to call Meghan duplicitous. He continued to infer that she was shady. He continued to be that agonistic voice on the panel. And again, when you're trying to create a fair and balanced environment, especially on a show like TMZ Live or TMZ No BS, they're trying to create a voice for every opinion so that they can put it out there and discuss it. But I was not feeling Fabian calling her duplicitous. And I was like, first of all, look up what the word means. Look up what the word means. And then second, with Harry Levin saying that, is it Henry or Harry Levin? I'll have to look it up. But with Harry Levin saying that her not making Kate cry was a minuscule thing and kind of dismissing it. Again, it showed that they really needed someone from the UK to just weigh in. I appreciated the American view because that's not our royal family, so we can really let have in the areas that we need to. And overall, they were fair and balanced. They definitely spoke up. Now, there was this moment where they were talking about Meghan and Harry's plan to leave the royal family, and Harry Levin made it a point to say they blindsided the Queen. They planned it for a year and never told her. Again, detail is needed because in the Oprah interview, Harry said, I tried to talk to my grandmother. I tried to reach out to her. They would not let me talk to her. And the only time she realized that's what was happening was when he did the interview. The interview wasn't just to air grievances. The interview was to say, hey, mayday, mayday, there's a lot of shit you don't know. And again, they left all that out. So they were like, he didn't tell his grandma that was duplicitous, that was shady. He blindsided the Queen. He didn't blindside the Queen. They would not let him have access to his granny. So again, I feel like it would have been so much better for them to have someone on the end. Now, they did have this moment where Mark Cuban, right? Mark Cuban weighed in, and he said that Harry and Meghan were the new Obamas. Mark, Harry and Meghan can exist on their own, and the Obamas are who the Obamas are. The Obamas were the president and first lady. The Obamas were the leader of the free world. The Obamas are the Obamas. They are not to be compared with anyone else. Harry and Meghan are not to be compared with anyone else. They're royals. Those are two completely different things. And there is no overlap. We don't need a new Obama and Michelle. We have Barack and Michelle. We don't need a new Harry and Meghan. We have a Harry and Meghan. You got to be careful with language like that. Like there's only room for one diverse couple at a time. I didn't like that, Mark. But something Mark said that I liked was that he really did anticipate Meghan and Harry becoming billionaires within the next 20 years. And I completely agree. They're working their asses off. They have all these projects coming out. They're being very forthright. They're making connections. They're building relationships. But most of all, they are still committed to a life of service. And I really appreciate that. I would have liked a little bit more in-depth knowledge from people who knew each of them. TMZ has the power. They could have gotten people who knew each of them personally, like a friend, a relative, that could have given us more insight on maybe some of the things that we didn't know. But they were really sympathetic to Thomas Markle, which was a little surprising, but then I realized they've done interviews with Thomas, so obviously they were honest about him, And they talked a lot about how he broke Meghan's heart, and I appreciated them being very honest about that, and how even the letter that leaked, although he was very wrong for that, it still worked in Meghan's favor. And again, you don't win when you play dirty. And they talked about how they kind of talked about him sympathetically, like, oh, he just caught the fame bug. He just wanted to be famous. He didn't realize it would hurt them. Bullshit. He's a grown-ass man. I think he was fully aware of how it was hurting Meghan, and he just didn't care. He just wanted what he wanted, which was attention. Which, had he just done the right thing, he would have been one of the most famous fathers in the world. I don't understand. What the hell was he thinking? Had he just been nice, everyone in the world would have seen his face when he walked his daughter down the aisle. He would have come out so much better had he just... See? Crazy people. So, lastly, I feel like they maintained that it was even kill, but something that they said was, you're either in or you're out, no halvesies. Again, someone from the UK with knowledge of the entire royal family, not just the ones that are on the balcony, would have known why they recommended that and why they asked that. It's just, it was lacking knowledge in some areas, that their critique didn't make sense if they had in-depth knowledge. I was like, did anybody even research anything, or did we just pick headlines and then start chatting? I didn't feel that comment. They also made it a point to say that they should not want the titles for their kids. And let's be very clear, they have not ever said that they wanted titles. They've only told the story of how titles were revoked and security was revoked, even though they faced immeasurable threats. That was what they did. That was what they said. They never once tried to rally or argue or whine for titles. That was never what they did. But on the panel, I felt like that kind of kept getting tossed around. And what I do wish was that Harry Levin was a better moderator, where he was able to give the actual fact behind the allegation and discuss the fact itself, or what was known to be fact, versus the rumors. I think they could have done a better job in the docuseries of separating the rumor from the fact. But again, I'm finding that to be true with absolutely every documentary that I watch on Harry and Meghan. They don't do a great job of isolating the rumors. They kind of throw it out there and then they combat it or confirm it, but they don't actually state why or why not it's fact or just a rumor, if that makes sense. They're not great at identifying what is actually known versus what is rumored to be known. So overall, I thought they did a great job of dissecting, especially the fallout, but also their life in California. I think Fabian needs to learn the word duplicitous and learn what it means. I think they should have had someone, once again, from the UK, or at least a royal correspondent, to give their perspective. And I personally feel like they were a little too sympathetic with Thomas, as if he wasn't a grown man. They acted like a toddler who just got into the peanut butter and he just didn't know. He made a mess. No, Thomas was, for the better part of a year, torturing his child in the media. And so was her sister. They did not go anywhere near how dirty Samantha has been in the media. They really played it safe. So overall, I liked the docuseries, but I do have that critique. I think they could have done a better job, but I would give it about a 6 out of 10. It was definitely enjoyable to watch because it's TMZ. They got all the copyrights to show good footage. They really went deep, especially about Meghan's baby shower and what that effect was on the royal family, things like that. They really did a great job of discussing, and they did a great job of identifying why or why not it had such an impact to people who were American and may not even know anything about it. But with that responsibility, I feel like they could have done a much better job with bringing the honesty and clarifying the truths behind the rumors. So that's my critique. Overall, I liked it. I did watch it on Tubi, and because I watched it on Tubi, I had to download the app on my Roku, and I really enjoy Tubi. I found a lot of other things that I'm going to watch. Once again, thank you so much, Sean Davis. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for recommending it. If you are on my Patreon, thank you so much for watching and being a member of my Patreon. I really appreciate you. And if you're a Friend Circle member or a Royal Court, I'm going to bow to you. Thank you so much for watching. If you have not already, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and turn on that notification bell. And I will see you next time.